today, pre-written software is only taxed when it arrives on a physical disk, which is an outdated distinction in our sales tax law. This bill also extends the current temporary business tax credit cap for 3 additional years and further establishes a permanent business tax credit limitation commencing with the 2030 tax year. A permanent credit limitation will ensure that the largest profitable corporations in California pay a reasonable minimum level of tax rather than offsetting all their tax liability with tax credits. And members, these revenue changes were assumed in building our 2026 budget, which was passed in AB 109 on Monday, and together with the MCO tax in SB 125, represent an agreement on revenue changes with the Assembly and the Administration. These bills have been passed by the Assembly already. While the package is not our first choice for new revenues, I'm proud that the Senate led the way for our Assembly and Administration colleagues to explore revenue options as part of a balanced approach in meeting a final deal. The general fund generated by these changes will allow the state to prevent some of the most devastating reductions to health care and social services and delay the implementation of others. And it will also make continued investments in education, child care, affordable housing, homelessness reduction, and many other programs that are important to Californians.
We usually have a budget deficit because economic factors cause tax revenues to fall off, creating a mismatch between revenues and expenditures. We know we have a highly unusual structural deficit because we have expenditures that are increasing, not just static, but increasing, along with revenues that continue to increase, but not as much as expenditures. That is our highly unusual structural deficit. So go ahead and tax software development, which is essentially taxing labor that develops a product. And so while we're at it, maybe we could consider taxing the labor on a major air conditioner repair, because once that is done, it creates a new product. Or tax labor on a replaced roof, because that creates a product which includes the labor value. I probably shouldn't pass out any ideas, but I suspect perhaps others are thinking of this already. Go ahead and go ahead and violate the spirit of Proposition 35. Speaking now about the next bill, SB 125, and implement an MCO tax that will actually end up increasing costs of health care for just about everybody.
If you look back at the tape from Monday's budget debate, you will note that over $1 billion of additional spending was called for by our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, whether for distressed hospitals, for rural community health, Prop 36, over $1 billion. In fact, it turns out it's just the same amount as one of these tax measures that's before us today. So what we heard earlier in the week was we need to be spending more money and we don't have enough money. That's exactly what this bill is. This is about responsibly budgeting for the future of California. We cannot live just on day-to-day stock market gains by the AI companies. We have to have a stable tax system in this state in order to meet exactly the needs that members on both sides have identified this past week.
This expands California's sales tax to software subscriptions and digital services, the very tools that small businesses depend on to survive. Payroll software, inventory systems, construction management tools, healthcare platforms. For millions of Californians, this isn't abstract. This impacts real people, real businesses. And this is a difference. This tax could be the difference between making payroll and missing it. And let's be direct about what happens next. Businesses don't absorb new taxes. They get passed on to us. through fewer hires, through delayed investment, and ultimately through closed doors. The people who pay the price are always the same people. Always the same people. Working families who can least afford it. The restaurant owner trying to make payroll, the contractor trying to win a bid, the doctor trying to keep their lights on, the nonprofit stretching every single donated dollar, the startup that might have been the next great California company if we let it grow. But colleagues, this budget spends $355 billion. And it seems ironic to me that we're told every year that there's never enough revenue. And every year, government gets bigger while affordability gets worse. And let me say this plainly. What the data shows, what Californians already know, the problem is not that Californians are undertaxed. The problem is that Sacramento won't stop spending. Every new tax makes this state a little less livable, a little less competitive, a little more hostile to the entrepreneurs and to families that we all claim to serve. People are not leaving California because they love the weather somewhere else. They're leaving because they can't afford to stay. And now we want to tax the very tools they're using to try and stay. Madam President, colleagues, they say that two things are certain in life: death and taxes. However, Californians are being taxed to death. I strongly urge a no